Yo, what's up, everybody? Here at the NASP conference in Louisville, Kentucky. We've got to give a nice shout out to Logitech, who is the sponsor of the NASP Principal Podcast. Thank you for the headphones. We're loving them. Thank you for the Blue Yeti mics. That's what we're on right now, and the audio is just absolutely amazing. I'm here with my partner in crime, Dr. Rachael George. Rachael, what's going on?
Hey. Great to see all you guys.
So we're talking about communication, Rachael, and we were just talking for the Center for Innovative Leadership, where you and I are both fellows, about school communication. What are some ideas that principals could utilize in their school to just effectively communicate? We had a really good conversation here in the Learning Lounge. Summarize kind of like some of the best ways that you've heard that principals and school leaders communicate with their community.
So my favorite idea is the video. I think that that's fantastic. And you hit it home when people aren't reading your newsletters anymore. People aren't opening the email. So read that sucker. Start going off. And that was one of my favorite things as a principal to do, especially that was one of the areas in the pandemic that really pushed me to expand, was having video conversations, having live events, and just recording it and sharing that out on a variety of different platforms. So that way families were able to see you, connect, so much more personable. And just felt like you got to know them a lot better. So then when you saw them in the pickup line or you had to make that phone call for a discipline issue, that connection and relationship was fostered so much better.
Yeah, I remember a school where I was a principal. I used to read stories, and we did it on video, and then also we put it out as the audio. And I had parents tell me that they had a child that was younger that wasn't in school yet, but they saw me at school, and they would say, "Oh my gosh, there's the principal." They already knew you. I mean, how hard is it to just build relationships with community and something that you don't see, but then taking it to a level of the child is not even in your school yet and they already know who you are? And as you talked about, relationships are number one. And when people, especially a family, has that relationship with you, they're going to do so much more. They're going to understand, I think, in a different way, and just connect in so many other ways. So let's talk about podcasting. We're recording a podcast right now. Again, thank you to Logitech for sponsoring the podcast at the NASP 2022 conference. There were some really good ideas out there. What are some ideas to put in a podcast to your community, you think?
Well, it's summertime. Who knows when this episode might drop, but let's talk beginning of the school year.
Yep.
How about ways to introduce your new staff, your returning staff, and how about you, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's so many different people that are moving into your community. Let's have a conversation about who are you about, what are your values, what can they expect from you, and share some of your personal stuff, like what do you like to do, what are your interests, so then that way you can get to know folks.
So I love the new staff idea, because I remember when I was a principal and we hired a new teacher, everybody would say, "Who's so-and-so? Who's so-and-so?" So get ahead of the game. Hire them, record a video or a podcast, 5 minutes. Who are you? Where'd you go to school? What do you like to do? Tell us about yourself. When you do that, it's kind of like you're just giving people a heads up on who they are. And I don't think the kids actually worry so much about who their teacher is going to be. It's the parents. So really, you're doing it for the parents to kind of get ahead of it. We also have Ryan Daniel and Jessica Gomez,
Yay!
Who are fellows with NAESP, both amazing principals. One's on the East Coast, one's on the West Coast.
Yeah.
So talk about ways that you just have communicated with families and just what works, maybe what you tried and didn't work. I think those learning levers are really important. I've learned the most when I've not failed, but like it didn't go super smooth. So Jessica, why don't you kick us off?
So earlier, Adam, you mentioned about the newsletter. And you mentioned the s'more. I mean, I love s'more. Yes. But I was thinking, I was so proud of my newsletter, right, Ryan? So proud of the links that you put in, the pictures. And then realized, no, we didn't read that newsletter. I'm like, what do you mean you didn't read the newsletter? So that was one that I think at some point I had to say, okay, you can be very proud of your work, but let's really meet our families where they are. And for me personally, it's
not about you, it's about your family.
That's right, exactly. It's
Go.
always about that. And as principals and as school leaders, we need to remember that that's what it's about. So that has been something that I finally said, okay, that's not going to work. So I started doing Monday Must Knows.
Ooh.
And yeah, so it started during the pandemic, really. So I would create Google Slides, and I would just put my little, I think I use like Screencastify, and then I put my little video at the bottom, and I would just record. It's almost like a podcast, but not really. And so they can either listen to it or they can just look at the slides instead of listening to me. So either way, it went as a slide. Like you can just scroll through them really quick instead of a newsletter. It's still the same information, but it's on the slide, and it's just it wasn't overwhelming. And then I just talked through it if they wanted to know a little bit more. So I send that out every Monday, and they're like, I've gotten really great feedback about that. Oh, you didn't send it out. You sent it out on Tuesday because it was a crazy Monday or whatever. So I know they hold me accountable. That has been really great. Monday must-knows.
So they're starting to wait for it.
Yes.
And they want
Which
it.
is
And
great,
they want it, which
because
tells
it's
me-
useful.
Yes, and then what I'll do is I'll just take like screenshots of the slides, and then I'll just put them on Instagram, and they can just swipe through like a picture.
Love it.
Yeah, so I don't have to record it. They swipe through. It's on our lobby like marquee thing.
Wow.
It's everywhere. So talking about putting it in all the different places, so they know what's going on.
Good tip.
That was Jessica Gomez. Now we have Dr. Ryan Daniel. Ryan, what do you got for us?
So I think the pandemic helped me really reimagine education and realize that the things that I was doing, it was great, but it just wasn't reaching everyone. And so last school year, I was actually at a new school. So it was more important for me to think of different ways to reach out to parents. So I started using Class Dojo, and then I would record videos every Sunday night just to give a parent this is what's happening this week. Because I realized that sometimes reading all of the messages is just too much. But if you can listen to me as you're driving, you're dropping your child off to school, then you don't forget anything. So that was very helpful, just kind of adjusting, because the newsletters, the analytics just wasn't giving me what I wanted. I realized that people were missing so much information. So I just started making things interactive. I have a YouTube channel that the students find me on there, and they're like, well, I know what's happening this week. I watched the YouTube, and I made sure my mom subscribed to it. And so that has really been helpful, just kind of adjusting. I like what you said earlier of, use the old ways, but kind of bring them to some of that new
That's what I was going to say.
Do a refresh.
It's still a newsletter content.
Yes, it is. It's just presented in a different way. But I also like that it has made it more personal.
And shout out to you, Dr. Ryan Daniel. You did a fantastic job communicating with your families on social media. I watched that from afar. So can you share the name of your school and those sites? Because you have great examples that are exemplars for so many leaders.
Yes, absolutely. So I am the proud principal at Fort Foote Elementary School. I'm located in Maryland. But the best way to follow the things that we're doing is #Pride at the Fort. That is our hashtag. And if you click on the hashtag, you'll see all of the work, all of the fun and exciting things, but most of all, how I built relationships with parents via social media, bringing them into the classroom, especially with the pandemic, right? Because that personal feeling of walking your child to the classroom, meeting the teacher face to face, like they miss so much of that. So it was really important to find different and new ways to open the school virtually for parents.
And even
to
coming back, so I don't know about you all where you're at, but in California, we were not allowed to have visitors on campus. So where before they probably walked their kids to the classroom the first day of school and all that was a no-no. And so to being able to do that, like give them a sneak peek into here's what's happening on the first day of school.
Absolutely.
They were eating that up, Instagram live, going live. Oh, they get real quick.
Yeah, right, because it's right now. It's like, oh wait, Dr.
doing
Daniel's
something.
going live.
Yes.
Let me stop while I'm at lunch, or I'll post something in the morning. Hey parents, around lunchtime, I'm going to be opening my computer and Zoom. Hop in here, and you can have lunch with your bear. But then also in the beginning of the school year, I would do tours, right? So I would take something very simple, my phone and the selfie stick, and just take my phone around the building.
Selfie stick?
Yes, around the building.
That's how you got those great pictures.
Yes, to give a tour of the school, so those parents, those new families, those new students, they will remember it.
I love that.
Something to kind of finish us out, something that I see a lot is people reluctant to try something new. But when they do try something new, they don't adjust it, I think, quick enough. If it doesn't work, just adjust it. You don't need to get rid of it. Just tweak it and tweak it and tweak it. And maybe you're a new principal at a new school this year, or an assistant principal. don't be wed to what the person before you was doing, because they had a certain personality. Bring your personality, try to bring them together. It's like if you try a new recipe and you don't love it, next time you make it, you just add a little more salt, or you take a little bit more away. You don't go, I'm not making that anymore. So maybe I think the thing I'm trying to say is just don't be so rigid in everything that you do, because the world is changing every single day, as we know, and we have to change how we communicate with our families. So, hey, again, thank you to Logitech for sponsoring the NASP Principal Podcast. Dr. Ryan Daniel, Jessica Gomez, Dr. Rachael George. My name's Adam. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all you do. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, Apple, Spotify, basically wherever you listen to podcasts. Go to naesp.org, and we hope you have an absolutely amazing day.